The death of another rock musician was disclosed today. Jim Morrison, 27 years old, lead singer of The Doors.
I'd like to do a song that, or a piece of music that's just a pure expression of joy.
The last 24 hours of Jim Morrison, July 3rd, 1971. Dawn breaks over Paris. Inside a quiet apartment in Le Marais, 24-year-old Pamela Corson walks down the hall calling Jim's name. Silence. She pushes open the bathroom door. There he is, reclined in the tub, head tilted back, lips curled in a slight smile. She thinks he's playing a joke. Then she sees the blood from his nose, swirling in the water. Jim Morrison, the leather-clad frontman of The Doors, one of the most iconic rock stars of his era, is dead. He was just 27. The world is stunned. The voice behind Light My Fire and Riders on the Storm, the self-declared Lizard King, silenced overnight. No one saw it coming. Not like this, not in a foreign city, not in a bathtub. But the truth, as it always is with Morrison, is more complex, more poetic, and more tragic. James Douglas Morrison was born on December 8, 1943, in Melbourne, Florida. His father, George Stephen Morrison, was a decorated rear admiral in the US Navy, and his strict, disciplined household left little room for Jim's rebellious creativity. Jim's early years were marked by frequent moves across the country, 9 different cities by the age of 16. He spent long hours alone, often immersed in literature. Even as a boy, Morrison was drawn to the strange and the dark. He devoured the works of Nietzsche, Blake, and Rimbaud. By the time he reached high school, he was writing poetry that leaned into existential themes and taboo ideas. He once claimed to have witnessed a violent car accident as a child and believed that the spirits of the dead entered him. That moment haunted him for life and shaped his artistic philosophy. In 1964, Morrison moved to Los Angeles and enrolled in UCLA's film program. It was there that he met Ray Manzarek. A chance encounter on Venice Beach changed everything. Jim recited the lyrics of Moonlight Drive. Manzarek was floored. They soon formed a band, bringing in guitarist Robbie Krieger and drummer John Densmore. The Doors were born. In 1967, their self-titled debut album hit the shelves. Powered by hits like Break On Through and Light My Fire, it climbed to number 2 on the Billboard charts. The Doors were unlike any other band on the California scene, bluesy, theatrical, dangerous. Their music was raw and poetic, often laced with surrealism. Morrison's stage presence was magnetic. He writhed, screamed, whispered. Every performance felt like a seance. Audiences were captivated. Critics were bewildered. He became a counterculture icon overnight. Between 1967 and 1971, The Doors released 6 studio albums, each reaching gold or platinum status. By their 4th release, The Soft Parade, Morrison was both a superstar and a lightning rod for controversy. By 1971, The Doors released L.A. Woman, widely regarded as their final masterpiece. Songs like Riders on the Storm and the title track reflected Morrison's emotional exhaustion and spiritual unrest. His voice sounded rougher, deeper. He was changing, both physically and artistically. Behind the scenes, Jim was unraveling. He was drinking heavily, gaining weight, and struggling with his identity. In private, he wrote poetry obsessively, filling notebooks with verses. One of his final poems ended with the lines, last words, out. Jim Morrison's great love was Pamela Corson. They met in the mid-60s and quickly became inseparable. Pamela was a muse, a partner in chaos, and often a source of deep pain. Their relationship was intense, fueled by passion, drugs, and creative ambition. He once referred to her as his cosmic partner. Despite their fights and dysfunction, Jim trusted her more than anyone. She inspired some of his most vulnerable poetry, but their life together wasn't easy. By the time they moved to Paris in March 1971, Pamela was battling a heroin addiction. Jim, who hated the drug, tried to keep his distance from it. After being found guilty of indecent exposure at a 1969 concert in Miami, Morrison faced up to 6 months in prison. Though he was appealing the verdict, the legal pressure weighed heavily. He was tired of being a spectacle, telling friends, "I don't want to be a dancing monkey." His health deteriorated. He suffered from a persistent cough and respiratory issues. Friends noted he often coughed up blood and experienced violent hiccup fits. A doctor prescribed asthma medication, which later turned out to have cardiac side effects, especially dangerous when mixed with alcohol. July 2nd, 1971. Jim woke up in his Paris apartment at 17 Rue Beautreillis. He spent the day with his old friend Alain René. The two wandered through the streets of the Marais district, strolled through Place des Vosges, and chatted about literature and art. At one point, Jim bought Pamela a glass Star of David from a shop window, a small token of affection. But René noticed something was off. Jim looked pale, exhausted, and was constantly hiccuping. He even vomited blood at lunch. Despite his discomfort, Jim insisted he felt okay. They returned home late in the evening. Corson later told police they watched films together, then went to bed. In the early hours of July 3rd, Pamela awoke to the sound of Jim struggling to breathe. He got up to take a bath, trying to calm himself. She offered to call a doctor, but he refused. Moments later, he was gone. Pamela claimed she discovered him lifeless in the tub around 5 a.m. His eyes were closed, and a faint grin still sat on his lips. Blood trickled from his nose into the water. Morrison was officially pronounced dead by a local physician. The cause? Heart failure. No ambulance was called. No autopsy was performed. Under French law, if there's no sign of foul play, no further investigation is required. Pamela called the door's manager, Bill Siddons, who flew to Paris and handled the funeral arrangements. On July 7th, Jim Morrison was buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery near the graves of Balzac and Oscar Wilde. Only a handful of people attended. Pamela read one of his poems at the service. The official cause listed was heart failure. But Morrison was just 27. He had no known heart condition. Many suspected drugs were involved. Friends like Marianne Faithfull later alleged that Morrison overdosed on heroin, possibly supplied by Count Jean de Breteuil, Pamela's rumored lover. Other accounts suggest Morrison died at the Rock and Roll Circus, a nightclub managed by Sam Burnett. Burnett claimed Morrison overdosed in the club's bathroom and that his body was transported back to the apartment to avoid scandal. De Breteuil fled to Morocco shortly after and died of an overdose the following year. To this day, there's no conclusive explanation for Morrison's death. Because no autopsy was done, the mystery persists. Some even believe Morrison faked his death, citing his fascination with disappearing and his playful anagram nickname, Mr. Mojo Rising. While this theory lacks concrete evidence, it reflects the mythic aura Morrison cultivated. He once wrote, "People fear death even more than pain. Life hurts a lot more than death." After his death, Jim Morrison joined the infamous 27 Club alongside Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and later Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. His image was immortalized: wild hair, leather pants, and those haunting blue eyes. The Doors' legacy soared. L.A. Woman became a farewell anthem. Morrison's poetry was published posthumously, and fans from around the world made pilgrimages to his grave. His influence spans generations, from punk rock to grunge to spoken word. Numerous documentaries, books, and films, including Oliver Stone's 1991 biopic, have attempted to capture Morrison's essence, but none have fully unraveled the man behind the myth. Jim Morrison lived like a comet, blazing, unpredictable, and destined to burn out too soon. In his own words, he warned us, "No one here gets out alive." He wasn't just a rock star, he was a poet, a provocateur, a seeker of truth in a world obsessed with illusion. His final 24 hours were filled with poetry, pain, and an eerie calm, as if he sensed the end was near. And maybe, in a way, he did. Today, his music still echoes, his words still stir, and his legend continues to grow. Jim Morrison, gone too soon but never forgotten.